So, welcome to this panel. It's just a conversation we are going to have um, with each other and also with our audiences. Some of them might ask questions, so be prepared for some of their questions. Before we jump in, um, I just want to say that Ladies Corner Canada has been around for 5 years. We've done a lot of writing, like there are magazines that come out every quarter, and there is also talk shows that we do on Facebook Live and on YouTube very regularly on different topics. There are different interviewers. I'm not the only one. There is many interviewers who handle different topics like health and other things. They have their own expertise. And so this has been going on, and I hope you will be conscious of this medium for the future, just being aware. Hi, finally you're here,
Yeah,
Jared.
I'm
Nice to
back
have you.
and I'm live. Check, check, check.
So I'm going to quickly give you the rules. You have each of you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself and your mandate for your ward. And thereafter every question, you have 1 minute to attack the question. Please do not attack any other candidate. That's not okay in this panel. And we want you to keep yourself muted when you're not talking so that there's no disturbance for anybody else. And please stick to the questions. It's very nice to have very enthusiastic and zealous candidates, but we really want to stick to the time limit. So please stick to the question asked. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll start with Lana. Lana, can you give us your introduction, please?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Ladies Corner, and you, Mary, for providing this forum. I think this is extremely important and valuable. Like you said, my name is Lana Palmer, and I am an oral surgeon from Brazil. I immigrated to Canada in 2002, and in the last 18 years, I have worked in the private sector and as a small business owner. My husband and I are raising 3 children here in Edmonton. I decided to run for city council because I care. I care about our city, I care about our children and our collective future. And I believe every Edmontonian has a part to play if we are to create the city of our dreams. I see a city that's enticing, that is prosperous, that is vibrant, and ultimately a city that our children will never want to leave. I have been listening to Edmontonians for a while, hardworking people that are doing their best to raise their families in these very challenging times. And I want you to know that your concerns are my concerns, and I believe we need real change. I believe our communities play an essential role in the success of our city, and I'm committed to helping Edmontonians get back to work and to create an environment for growth. In March of 2020, we saw the volunteer services in our city collapse due to COVID-19. And my family and I acted on the invitation given by Mayor Ivinson for those that were willing and able to get involved. So for the last year and a half, we have been going out multiple times a week, working with the most vulnerable when they needed our help the most. So I hope this shows that what you can expect from me, that as a city councilor, I'm going to help in difficult times. I'm going to get involved when other people will not. And I will not hide when it comes to critical and impactful situations. I believe that's what has made our city and the foundation of our city so great. And I want to build upon those values. So thank you.
Thanks, Lana. Let's move to Tricia.
Thank you, Mary. And I'm just going to echo Lana there and say thanks for hosting this. And I also want to thank all the candidates for taking part this evening. It's great to see you. And it's great that unless there have been changes to the list, all the Dene candidates are on taking part in the forum today. So I want to thank all of you for your time as well. My name is Tricia Velteisen. I'm running for City Council. Again, I ran 4 years ago as well. And Northeast Edmonton and Edmonton are as important to me now as they were 4 years ago. You can argue that this will be a completely different race, because last time there were 12 of us, and this time there are 4, and I'm looking forward to the conversations. It's been really great to have to continue those conversations from 4 years ago, and to have conversations with more residents. And some of those conversations are the same, some of them are different, and each one of them is important. I live in the area. I have for the past 10, 11 years. My home has been here, and I have always lived in the Northeast. So I'm very fond of this corner of the city. We have a distinct pride here. We have a distinct spirit. We are unique, and I think it's a beautiful thing. One of the reasons that I'm running again is because I think City Council's headed down the wrong path, and we need to relook at that. We need to have new voices, new opinions, new visions, and I'm excited to see the entire campaign roll out. Some of the things that I'm hearing about in those conversations, and some of the things that are also important to me, include supporting law and order, cutting red tape and taxes, ending the war on drivers, and positioning our communities, for economic recovery, which is now more important than ever, especially coming out of the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to what is, I believe, the last 10 or 11 weeks of the campaign period before Election Day. I am looking forward to more conversations. I'm looking forward to answering your questions. I'm looking forward to putting my lawn signs on your yard. And I'm looking forward to earning your vote on October 18th.
Thanks, Tricia. Aaron.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the name is Gerald. Thank you very much for this opportunity, for the invitation, for this forum, and also
I think there was some kind of confusion. I asked Aaron, and I think his mic is off. So started speaking.
If Gerard wants to speak, I'm free.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I hate Gerard.
Oh, very good.
It's okay, Aaron. Go ahead.
Would you mind if Aaron takes the first go at it?
I don't mind at all. Sorry for the confusion. Go ahead, Aaron.
No problem.
Okay, well, Thank you very much. And thank you, Mary. I'm so grateful to Ladies Corner for these debates. I'm a lifelong Edmonton and Edmontonian, and I'm a parent raising my family, the best area in the city, which is the Northeast and more Dene. I'm so thankful for having this incredible opportunity to serve this community since 2017 as your city councillor. I continue to be committed to building strong and diverse communities and supporting them in the Northeast. And some of you may know that prior to being elected, I worked as an author, an artist. I'm also a small business owner, as well as a CEO. In my role as your city councillor for Ward 4, soon to be Ward Dene, I've sat on the executive committee, utility committee, and city manager and city auditor performance evaluation committee. I also sponsored the council initiative on food security and agribusiness, and I'm also a part of the Child Friendly Edmonton initiative and Poverty Edmonton, multiculturalism, and urban isolation and mental health initiatives. And I'm happy to be with you in the same year that City Council passed the new city plan that places the Northeast as one of the key nodes for city investment moving forward. It's huge. Also, I'm really happy that we got a reporting back this year on my motion on consulting fees, which has transformed the way that we procure services and has had a profound impact on how we work on our budgets. And speaking of budgets, I'm also really happy to report that we're moving to a priority-based budgeting system, which means that wards no longer have to fight and scrabble for resources. In fact, it's based on priority, which, as you can imagine, means that the Northeast has been targeted for an enormous amount of investment going forward. So, and last year, my fight for 0% tax increases did not get unanimous support, but this year it did. And so I'm happy to report that too, that we managed to get to 0% tax increases for this year. I'm really happy to have led the fight on that because frankly, families had a really tough time going forward in this pandemic. And you just can't ask people for more when they're already just trying to put food on the table. I've been focusing on the economy, focusing on jobs, focusing on safety. In fact, we just had a wonderful multi-month engagement process with the community and with EPS and with Reach Edmonton in order to develop community-based plans for safety. So again, I'm just really happy to be here, and I look forward to tonight's conversation.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Gerard.
Now that's my name being called. Thank you. Yeah, as everybody, I'm also happy and glad to be here, part of this forum, and thanks for the organizer again. The name is Gerard. I was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a very beautiful country in the middle of Africa. You cannot miss it. It's huge. And I've had the fortunate and honor to call Edmonton home for the past 12 years since arriving here with family as government-sponsored refugees. And over the past 12 years, I've gone through the ESL system. I've gotten my bachelor's degree, and I've gotten my master's degree in degree in international relations. And when it comes to Edmonton, really, this is home. I've always traveled and come back. I've always studied and come back. I've always gone to trips and come back. And so Edmonton means the world to me here in Canada and around the world, because here is where I settled with family. Here is where we established. Here is where we got going with first employment, study-wise. So I have deep roots here in the city, and in terms also on giving back in the city, really. I volunteered with various organizations, whether it's on refugees issues, homeless issues, youth and children's issues, or even on youth at risk also. So the reason that, I decided, to throw my hat in the ring for this year's election, to take the further step and the further calling to serve the community, even greater and even higher, and I believe that there's a lot that still need to be yet to be done in the city in terms of inclusivity, making a safe space for everybody, in terms of public transportation, in terms of making sure, the city council, everybody in the community feel that works for them and the representative reflect the community that they're living in, and just ensuring that, we are there and I'm there to listen and to do really, what is elected to do, and that to serve the people. So that's why I'm here today. And on October 18, Gerard is here to serve.
Thank you, Gerard. It's such an inspiring story. He came here 12 years ago, and he just educated himself, and it's just so inspiring. I'm so touched by your journey, Gerard. It's awesome to have you here. And secondly, I have to acknowledge that we have people from so much diversity here in this ward, which is amazing. And I love to see that, because we had not enough gender parity. We did not have racial equity on council. And I'm really looking to see that in this election, because personally, I am a big proponent of multiculturalism. And I've done a lot of work, even with the city of Edmonton, to end racism. It's not been an easy fight. And I hope that each of you stand for those same values that, will bring Edmonton forward as a great city. My next question is, what have you been hearing at the doors of people that you've been knocking? And what are those things that people are saying that's different from previously? And, how, because COVID has changed a lot of things for people. There's been a huge amount of unemployment that has happened to so many people here in our city. And due to health issues, a lot of people have not been able to stay employed. And there have been so many things that have changed. So what are the things that you see are really top priority when you move into council? And what are those things you're going to immediately start working on for your constituents? Let's start with Lana.
I think top of mind for everybody. I wouldn't say that that's just a Dene particular situation, I think it's citywide, is about economic recovery. People are worried about having a job, about maintaining a job, about being able to put money, food on their table, and be able to pay their bills. So right now, I think that's the most important thing for most families. I think one thing that's extremely important that we need to do, and previous administrations have done a good job in getting the base of our tech sector established here in Edmonton. But I think it's more important than ever that we diversify as a society instead of solely relying on the oil and gas industry. COVID has shown us, COVID and other situations have shown us that we cannot be just relying on that. Oil and gas has been a wonderful thing for our province, but it's time to think about other alternatives, and we need to be relevant. And one thing that I think the city needs to do, and I would be a proponent of, is be supportive of other initiatives and industries so that we can bring money and jobs to our city. That's what we need right now. So I give it an example of Bitcoin Well that has set up their headquarters here in Edmonton and went public this week. So that's very exciting. So I think the question, using Bitcoin Well as an example, is the questions that we should be making at City Council is, what are the things that we can do, easy things that are not going to cost us any money, that we can do to support those companies and those industries to make sure that they stay in Edmonton, that they thrive in Edmonton, so that we as a society can thrive too, so that we can bring jobs to ourselves and to our children ultimately, so that they will not want to leave. And one thing that I think that we can do that's very easy, following Miami's example, is just declare ourselves as a cryptocurrency friendly city. That doesn't cost any money. And another thing that's extremely easy to do is place ATMs in different parts of our city that will not cost anything to taxpayer dollars, but will put our city on the map and give us free advertisement and free opportunities to show that we are innovative and that we are going to be on the front line of change, that we want change, that we want to be
Lana, you've exhausted your time. I'll have to pass on.
Thanks.
Tricia, can you in 1 minute tell us what you've been hearing at the door, and how are you going to action on the things that you've been hearing at the door? What will you prioritize?
Sure thing. Thank you. So generally speaking, what I've been hearing is a lot of frustration with City Council. And what's interesting is a lot of the complaints and frustrations that I heard 4 years ago, I'm still hearing today, which tells me that City Council is not focusing on its core priorities and the core responsibilities that it has. I continue to hear concerns and complaints about road maintenance or the lack thereof. Despite the fact that we are in the middle of summer, I'm hearing already some comments about snow clearing for the coming year. Taxes have come up. Certainly, there are some people who are happy to hear that there's a zero tax increase this year, but there are also people who are skeptical because, well, it's an election year, and so to do that on a one-off seems a little bit disingenuous, however much it is appreciated. Some people still raising concerns about bike lanes and about the different speed limits that have come into effect over the past couple of years, including playground zones and school zones, and how those don't necessarily make sense for year round, because in January, for example, at 8:30 p.m., you don't generally have children out in those areas because it's long dark by then. So I think that this is what needs to be addressed by council is, and I hate to say it because it is so cliche, but just a back to basics. We need to look at what is the city responsible for, what are city taxpayer dollars meant to be spent on, and let's go there and make sure that Edmontonians have the services that they need when they need them, where they need them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tricia. Let's move on to Aaron.
Thanks, Mary. The main things that we're hearing are concerns about mental health, community safety, public infrastructure, public transit, and the economy. Those are the main things that people are concerned about. Another thing that people are concerned about is just the fact that the city seems to be picking up on a lot of provincial responsibilities, which really should not be the case. There should be a very clear separation of responsibilities, and the city is either picking up on those and spending money in places where the province should be kicking in, or the relationship between the province and the city, it's at least financially, is not where it should be. There was actually an agreement that was made with the previous government that actually started negotiations with the government before that, that as soon as this new government came in, they kind of ripped it up, and that left municipalities in a little bit of a limbo. That means that resources that should be going to basic services are going to cover things that we never dreamed we'd have to be responsible for, unfortunately. But really what it comes down to is people just want to know that their city is growing in a good way, that there's going to be jobs, and that they're going to be safe. It's that simple. And so those are the things that I've been actively working on and that I'll continue to work on. In fact, it's one of the reasons why food and agribusiness diversification was one of my key initiatives walking into council 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. And it's why it's now one of the pillars of our economic plan going forward for the city, because it just makes sense. And you may have heard that through the hard work of Global Edmonton, the City of Edmonton, the Alberta Industrial Heartland Association, which I sit as the mayor's alternate on, and with the partnership of the provincial government, we were able to attract a $1.5 billion investment into our ward in the Orem Business Park, which is going to mean thousands of jobs going forward as they build that. 2,500, I think, to be precise, 700 offsite, and 30 long-term permanent jobs after that. Now, to put that in perspective, $1.5 billion is the city budget, I think 4.5 years of the entire city budget. So it's actually really huge. And as far as community safety, we've been actively working on that and working with Chief Dale McPhee to develop better strategies with the new challenges we have due to economic uncertainty and a rising problem with addiction, unfortunately, in our communities. From people who may have lost their jobs or have been injured. And, it's a tough time for folks, and we need to have strong strategies moving forward. And that's exactly what we're working on. So those are the main concerns.
Gerard, can you please address that question?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of the hearing and the concerns of people in the ward of Dene and the residents who lives in the area, as you have alluded to in your question, like COVID has had a lot of challenges, since last year into this year, when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to housing issues, when it comes, to even public transportation, also in terms of deciding, about buying food or paying rent and getting yourself from A to B, that has been a challenge. And then when it also goes to public transportation, there is some routes, in the area which cuts early, or some places like are not served good enough by the buses. So that's one of the concerns that has also been in the area. But the big majority of it has also to be, in terms of the many people, most people don't even know, the local representative, or they don't seem to pay much attention to the local levels of politics. They seem just to care much of provincial and federal. But if you indeed start educating them about the issues that affect them, and what the actual city councillors do, and what the city council is there for, and then they begin in terms of like, okay, paying attention or paying an ear. So then that would lead into terms of, the representation aspect of, to know that, okay, the level of authority, being able to reach out to people, being able to represent people, so that's one of the things, that I've been hearing in terms of that representation aspect, and the people are feeling that indeed they are being represented. And when it also comes to homelessness issues, it's an area which affects across Edmonton, but also specifically in the world. Also, when we look at affordable housing, people, especially now more than ever, people need access to affordable housing, access to mental support, access to youth and child services. So these are the things which have been
Gerald, you are very, your voice is really soft and it's very hard to really hear. So if you can just come closer to your mic, I think that might work better. Can you try again? Yeah, that's
can you hear
way
me
better.
clearly
Thank
now?
you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, yeah, we're just hearing about mental health. The toll that COVID-19 has had on people. When it also comes in terms of affordable housing. Especially people having lost their jobs. People are relying on food banks. People are finding other means of paying accommodation. And then I've been also hearing in terms of public transportation. When it comes the bus reaching out to other routes, or even to other neighborhoods in the corners, or even the bus going as late as people are working. The bus not to be cutting early, or having like a bus come 1 hour after or 30 minutes after. There's no that frequency of public transportation. So, and then also the other point which I was talking about in terms of the representation aspect, because people feel that the city council is not working for them, or they feel that they're not
We
being
heard
reached.
that. We heard that. You don't have to repeat it.
Okay, so yeah, I was just thought I would repeat because you said about my mic, but yeah, okay, so
thank you so much, Gerard,
yeah.
because you've been really listening, putting your ears to the ground and really hearing your constituents. Thank you for doing that. And this kind of engagement is so important, not just before getting elected, but also while you are a council candidate. So I would like to ask each of you, what does meaningful engagement mean to you, and how will you be accessible to your ward? To people who are actually trying to reach out to you, how will you be present for them, and how will you get feedback for the things that you've been doing in council, and how will you get back to them and make sure that this is what they wanted? So Lana.
I feel meaningful engagement is listening, actually really listening, and being available, and being able to be reached. So, and I think doing things a little bit outside the box, because there's lots of people that they're not available just 9 to 5, right? So I think that you need to make yourself available sometimes outside of those working hours, so that more people can have access to you. I feel one of the problems that we have is people are not engaged, and they're not engaged because they feel that no one's going to listen to them, or no one's going to do anything about what they say. So I think meaningful engagement means listening and then actually reporting back. So not simply talking to them, but telling them afterwards what you did with the information that you received. Doesn't mean that you're going to agree all the time with them, or you're going to do everything that they ask you to, but they do need to have a feedback. Either way, right? So that's how I consider meaningful engagement.
Thank you so much, Lana. That is so important what you said. I really don't see so many of the councillors doing that at this point. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that change, because that is so important for constituents to feel heard and to feel that sense of belonging from the representatives that they have put up on council. Tricia.
Thank you. So I think we need to remember too that there are also two parts of engagement. Arguably the first part is done at kind of the more bureaucratic level through administration, et cetera, when new policies are coming up. And so, for example, if you think of when they were working on the Bus Network Redesign, those are spearheaded by the administration, by the bureaucrats, and then there's that process. And for that process, first of all, we need to ensure that people actually feel like they are being heard. There have been a number of complaints about the Bus Network Redesign, including, for example, and this one falls a little bit outside of the Dene ward, but I know that people mentioned, hey, in the new redesign, there are no buses that go down 82nd Street. There's a ton of houses there. There's a ton of ridership there. I spoke with an ETS driver who didn't understand it. He said, because that was such a useful and well-used route. So for things like that, and that's but one example, for things like that, people need to feel that if they provide feedback, it will actually be taken into consideration. And another part of that too is timing. People are busy and it can be difficult to attend, for example, a full engagement session, which means we need to employ more ways of reaching out, be that surveys, polls, online, using social media and or websites. And then there is also, of course, the counselor part of engagement too. And that is making sure that you have those relationships within the community leagues, within just the communities. I do like the idea of ongoing, not to the extent of pre-campaign, but ongoing door knocking here and there to say, look, this is what's going on. I'm your counselor. What do you think? Because that way you are still connecting with the constituents. And I think that's so important so that you really have an idea of who is, of who your representative is, and for the representative, for the counselor, of what your constituents want and are looking for and have concerns with. And
Thank
so,
you, Tricia.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Aaron. I hope none of you consider my interjections rude, because I'm just trying to keep this time, and it's so important to give everybody equal time. So, Aaron.
They are very much appreciated. So engagement is an interesting thing. A lot of people may not know this, but the City of Edmonton is actually a global award winner for our engagement processes. A lot of cities are taking their lessons from the City of Edmonton, believe it or not. As a counselor, I am pretty much accessible almost 24/7. And that's one thing to understand, is that this job is not a 9 to 5. It is like a 60 to 80 hour a week, easy, any given week kind of job. And so I'm active online on social media. People email me, they call me at work, they call me on my personal line. And that's the key, to always be accessible. And if people have a question, to explain what is actually going on. Because sometimes you see something in the news and you're like, when did this happen? And what does it all mean? And without context, a lot of things can be kind of confusing. So it's really important to be engaged. And, everyone, in a city the size of 1 million like Edmonton, or a ward that's pushing $80,000 like ours, or 80,000 people like ours, you're not going to have full agreement among people. That's something that you just have to get used to. Some people are going to think something is the best idea ever, while others are going to think that it doesn't make a lot of sense. And you have to be able to negotiate that and to actually honor all of those perspectives. And that's really where you give voice to the people, because even if someone completely disagrees with you, their point can be incredibly valid and actually improve the way that you do things. So you have to be listening all the time. And there's such a diverse number of voices. There are people from all walks of life, from all parts of the world, from all parts of experience. And that's what makes us strong as a community. So I actually love hearing those voices. And some of my favorite ones are the ones who disagree, because how else can you learn?
Thank you so much, Aaron. I just love that perspective. You said that Edmonton got some award for its engagement, but really I'm going to challenge that, because, when we did the anti-racism consultations and we asked for an advisory council, oh my goodness, the kind of loops that we had to jump to get that done. And how administration put a wedge into it. And I was so unhappy with that whole process. So
I'll be the first to agree with you. I was unhappy with it too. One of the challenges that I think people find when they get on council is that you're one voice. You're one voice among 12 other people and plus administration. So if you can accomplish anything, you've done something phenomenal. And so I'm really happy to say that we accomplished a lot. We didn't get the process the way that we wanted, Mary, but we're getting there, as you know. And it's frustrating sometimes, for sure.
Thank you.
And thank you for that
feedback. We would like to hear how you will engage your constituents once you're elected to council.
Yeah, for sure. No problem. I think on engagement aspect, it's also alluded back to the point that I had made earlier on, in terms of, people being aware of local politics, or people being aware of city council, and that the representatives are there to serve them. So for me, specifically, the way I would engage, is the outreach to the people, holding a forum with different members of the community, holding meetings to understand the issues, continuously understanding the issues, and how to address the issues that people are facing in the community. And also just periodically, also knocking on doors, continuously engaging with people on one-on-one, and understand how you are serving them, and also, how can they be best served. Because on all of that, then people will understand, people will know that indeed the representative is there to listen to my concern. The representative is informing me also about the channels of addressing, that concerns, and people need to know indeed, the council is there for them, and is not just there for the few people who live in the world, or who live in the city. So that's how I would really approach, just the education aspect, the listening aspect, the holding engagement aspect, to indeed understand what is going on, and how people can be best served.
Thank you. My next question is about, the inclusion piece. So I personally have a special interest in that, because I have done a lot of multicultural work. When I lived in Fort McMurray, I was the director of the Multicultural Center. And I have seen how people have been engaged in Fort McMurray through different kinds of consultations. In Edmonton, it's much harder, because it's a much, much bigger city. And so it's much harder for you to see the things you say to council be reflected on their plans. So it's a big expectation. But I would really like to see, people saying that my voice was heard, and which is really not the case many times, as we see. So how is that inclusion piece going to be taken care of? And we've seen some women attacked. People are scared of going out into public transit. Now, how are we going to change that situation? So specifically related to inclusion. So can Lana take that?
Hi, I just want to answer the question that was posted on Facebook. She asked, do all candidates live in Dene? For myself, I do. So then going back to what you said, I think most important piece is just there are misunderstandings, and I think hate crimes for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the major reasons is because people don't understand each other. And I think if we got together in the same room and talked, we would realize that we have so much more in common than things that differentiates us and sets us apart. So I think there's lots of things in Edmonton that Edmonton has been doing that are great on that sense, like Heritage Festival. It's a wonderful example of festival that has been put by the city where 100 plus cultures are celebrated. So I think in a way, we need a little bit more of those things in a microcosmos way. So we need to utilize our community leagues in a better way to have more of those cultural events so that we can know each other, so that we can know our neighbors. Someone told me what they said is, what is the point of being in the community if you're not part of the community? And that has really stuck to me, because yes, lots of people feel that they are unseen and that they are unheard, and that they are misunderstood because there is not that connection between neighbors. And I think that's the key. That's my personal opinion, is that we need to make sure that we go back to basics and we go back to knowing our neighbors, doing block parties and using community leagues to strengthen those bonds, because that's how, when we know someone, when that person has a face and that person has a history, we're way less likely to hate them.
Thank you. So I totally agree. What I wanted to know is, like, how are we going to make sure that people who are discriminated against when they try to apply for a job, that they're totally, like, eligible to have, and they are discriminated at those levels, and they're kept below the poverty line just because they can't find work. And
yeah, that's a very complex situation, and I think it all starts with education, right? Because that's a fine line. How do you prove, right? Like sometimes if you're discriminated against, you were, but that's very hard to prove. So I think that we need to do a better job in educating and getting together as a community.
Thanks, Lana. Let me move to Tricia with this question about how are you going to make it easier for people of different diversities to apply and get the jobs that they're looking for, to play better in their community so that they feel the sense of belonging, to, like even to commute. So basically, somebody in one of the wards had told something about 15-minute cities, where within 15 minutes, you have everything accessible, your work, your play, and your necessities. So like, how will you make that happen for everybody, not just for the common mainstream community?
Wow, I feel like this question gets bigger and bigger all the time. So I think I really appreciate what Lana said, that it comes down kind of to education and to getting to know your neighbors. That's so crucially important. I want to, if I may, kind of veer, because you had also mentioned kind of earlier in the question, some of the security and safety aspects as well. And if I can just kind of relate a bit of an anecdote here too. As a female, I am very cautious and aware of my surroundings when I am walking, or so, especially at night. I used to take Edmonton Transit all the time, took it everywhere, all hours of the day and night. And later at night, service wasn't as great. You can bet that I walked with my phone out. Now, that being said, for 4 or 5 years, I sat on the board of the Somali Canadian Women and Children Association. And I will never forget a conversation I had with a fellow board member. Our meeting had ended, and this was still before I had a vehicle. And so I said, okay, heading home, walking home, and they were aghast that I was going to walk home. It's probably about a half-hour walk. Never entered my mind to be other than, concerned, yes, and aware, but I'm walking home. That's fine and they would never do that. And she ended up driving me home, and I appreciated that. But that opened up another piece too. I'm aware of my surroundings and who's around me when I walk home, but more so at night. And yet for this woman who I'm proud to call my friend as well, it would never enter her mind because she didn't feel safe. And that was a regular occurrence for many people within the Somali community, within many of those racialized communities. So I think when we look at that, I think there are already a number of initiatives out there that we need to really support and bring forward. There's certainly more work to be done. Don't get me wrong. There's more work to be done. But if I think of, for example, the neighborhood empowerment teams that really work on making sure communities are safe, and that's a partnership between EPS, the city, I think it's the United Way, and another group that I'm forgetting, or possibly two. Reach Edmonton does some phenomenal work. We need to really kind of empower those organizations and support them in their work, because they have sometimes the best pulse on the community, and especially when they're working in specific communities, they know what these specific issues are.
Yeah.
As a counselor, you might have an overarching view, but yeah, sorry.
Gone a little overboard here. So
sorry.
Thank you so much for taking that safety piece. That is really important. And I do agree that nonprofits do great amount of work, and we have to support them. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to Aaron. Just in terms of inclusion and in terms of safety, how are we going to make every community feel that they belong to Edmonton?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. You have to be actively against racism and speak up whenever you see it, and to vote in people who will do something about it. I am the first First Nations Cree person who was ever elected onto Edmonton City Council. And I can tell you, and I don't want to, throw anyone under the bus here, but I can tell you that as an organization, the city of Edmonton did not have a handle on how to deal with racism. And it's because of the hard work of people like you, Mary, and so many others, and the work that I was able to do working with other counselors to move some of this forward. The other thing is, you can't tell communities what is good for them. They have to tell you what they need, and then you listen and you do it. It's not enough just to hear people. You have to take action. One of the things that I did recently is we had a multi-month engagement with our communities, asking them, what will make your community safe? What will make you feel safe? And they gave us the answers. And that information now is being put into a report from REACH, and in partnership with EPS. And we'll be releasing that as soon as it's ready, because the solutions came from the community, and that's where it needs to be. And I think too often politicians think that they have the answers. They don't. I can tell you that right now, but you do. And that's where we have to go. It really breaks my heart sometimes. You go to an elementary school, you wouldn't know what racism is. It's something that people are taught. It's something that political leaders sometimes use to their advantage. And they leverage that, and it's sickening, and it's irresponsible, and we see it every day. And they do it with their dog whistles, and sometimes it's outright. And they use racialized people for their political aims, and that has to end. And giving a voice to the people is how we do it. Obviously, we have to up our security. We have to do all these things, but what we really have to do is get to the root of where this comes from, and deal with it from the root level. And, we don't talk about this too much, but a lot of that has to do with heart work. We have to connect.
Thanks so much, Aaron. That is so true. It has to really come from the heart. And I truly believe you when you say that, you've seen this happen, because I've seen it happen in Edmonton much more than when I was in Fort McMurray. So it kind of shocked me when I came here and I saw this glaring difference in how different people were treated. It just shocked me, because I did not experience that in Fort McMurray. And
Yeah, I agree with
sadly,
you. I grew up in a
there is a lot
multicultural
of it.
community. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just agreeing with you because I would rather just that one day you and I have to just sit down and talk.
I really believe there's a lot of work to be done in this area, and there is a lot of consciousness that needs to be created for people who do not see it yet. So seriously, that is some training that really counselors and city people have to get. So I really look forward to something like that really being put in place. Gerard, there is very little time left, so we have to, we have to quickly wrap this up. So just be quick about your answer. Thank you.
No problem, for sure. Yeah, I think much has been said already, and on the education piece, for sure, yeah, I would have to 150% agree with that, because when you are mixing with other culture, when you are meeting other culture, when you are learning about other culture, then that acceptance, builds in, so I really and that is one of the thing that also for me on personal level, when I first arrived here in Edmonton, in the country, I was making that effort, in terms of learning the history of the place, meeting and mixing with other people from different parts of the world, because it's not something that I was used to myself, from where I'm coming from. And one of example, in 2015, when I was at NAIT doing my bachelor's of business administration, we held a Black History Month event in February, and then we also mixed it with indigenous history, and we were amazed about when it comes to music, when it comes to the history of this country and the history where we come from, there's those similarity and the things that we can learn from each other, and to say, okay, now we are here, we are all here, how can we build the bridges, whether you're Black, whether you're indigenous, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, we are all here now. Let's learn about each other, let's build the bridges, and also when it comes to the city of Edmonton, when it comes even the accessibility of the city, whether it's in administration or whether people are applying for jobs, there's some people feel that, the city is not for me, or the city is not working on my behalf, or there's even some people say, I will never get a job at the city of Edmonton, and they want to work for the city, so we need to make sure, anybody and everybody, taking the qualification, taking the qualities, they need to believe that any job is accessible, any opportunity is accessible to them, and they need also to know that they can coexist and live with each other as neighbors.
Thank you so much, Gerard. It's so true that this is, again, echoing what Aaron said. It's a hard thing, and if you don't get it, there is no way you will push it. So it's so important to have people who have the heart for inclusion and diversity, and to realize that 40% of our community is diverse. It's not mainstream. So work for those people. I mean, they are the ones who will give you the vote. So make sure that you're working for them. We have approximately 7 minutes left. So I just want to give a quick opportunity to everybody to state one point that you think you have missed through this entire panel meeting. So let's go for it, Lana.
What I wanted to share more is just that I feel that we live in very exciting times. COVID brought a lot of hardships, but at the same time, it opened our eyes to some vulnerabilities that we have, and this is the opportunity to change it. It's the opportunity to move forward and to build a city that's bigger, better, and more vibrant than before. And we have the capability of doing it. We can do it. Edmontonians are hardworking people, are people that volunteer. To me, one thing that is extremely important is volunteering. And I see every day those silent people that do all those wonderful things for the betterment of our city, and they don't get any recognition. And they do it because of love, because they love their neighbors. And I feel that we can accomplish a lot. We just need to be in the right direction. Go back to basics, like Tricia said,
Thanks, Lana.
You're welcome.
That's really nice. It's so nice to end on that hopeful note. Tricia.
Yeah, thank you. So again, just want to take a quick second to thank you for the opportunity here today. And I just want to say too, one of the things that the city needs to do as we come out of the pandemic, and we should have been doing it before too, is we need to get out of the way wherever we can so that we can encourage investment and encourage innovation and encourage business growth and new businesses and expansion. There's too much red tape and too many processes that are getting in the way of that. I've spoken to a number of people who have raised those concerns. And I think that will be so key for us moving forward, because people want to do business here. They want to invest here. But if we're making it difficult, that's not going to happen. So I just really think that that's one place that the city can focus on too, is just ensuring that people have what they need, including processes, et cetera, in order to really succeed in our city.
Thank you so much. That's so true. The economic recovery will come through small businesses, when there's no employment being generated. So let's look at supporting that. Thank you so much for that. Aaron.
Oh, thank you. I'll try to get in this quick. First of all, thank you very much for hosting this. You've done a phenomenal job. I've had a lot of fun. So one of the things that we need to talk about is that we do have Global Edmonton, which is actively seeking out and procuring economic investment. We need to have all governments on board with that and making Alberta and Edmonton look like a good place to invest, a safe place to invest. And that's one thing that we're actively working on. But the other thing we have to remember is our local economy. We need to make sure that when the City of Edmonton puts out requests for proposals and procures work, that we're hiring local. And I made a motion to that effect. It's now embedded into the way that we do business. And that means that we've got marginalized communities, we've got immigrants, we've got people just with good ideas who are all going to be hired locally to keep those dollars in our local community. And that helps small businesses everywhere. The other thing I did is try to fight for 67 full-time equivalent jobs for cleaning services on Edmonton Transit. I didn't win that one. But I worked hard. I think we need to ensure that we keep good employment at the City of Edmonton, because those are people who are at the bottom rung of our pay scale. And those are the people who got cut. And they're the ones who we called heroes during the pandemic. So we've got to make sure that everyone is being taken care of, especially the people who can fall through the cracks so easily. Now, I've worked tirelessly over 4 years to ensure that our voice of the Northeast is represented at City Hall. And I've been adamant that we focus on promoting community safety and well-being, on economic development and investment to the Northeast. And I've actually succeeded on all those fronts. The investment that's pouring into the Northeast in the next several years is unprecedented. It's phenomenal. It's infrastructure dollars. It's dollars for organizations like C5.
Thanks, Aaron.
And I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. And boy, all of the experience that I've had in the past 4 years has been unbelievable. I'd love to be able to take that experience and move it forward in the next 4 years. So thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's hear the final word from Gerard.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think one of the things, that I would love to drive across, and which I believe we didn't discuss much, or it was highly a little bit bloated, is the community organizations. I think some people alluded, to the work that the community organizations do, when it comes, like, whether it's safety, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to food banks, if we are going to support the people, if we are going to come out of these struggles of pandemic and continuously building off the expertise and the experience and the knowledge of each other, we really need to support the community organizations who are often at the forefront, of helping and supporting people. So that's one of the things that I would like to see, moving forward. Should I be offered the opportunity to represent the people and the residents of our ward, then I would really support the community organizations, because the community organization, they do a lot of work in changing everybody's life, whether it's providing shelter, whether it's providing food, whether it's providing transportation, whether it's providing counseling, mental support. So that is something I'm passionate about the community, about supporting people and supporting those who are supporting others.
Thank you so much, Gerard. I think each of you have raised really valid points for Edmonton, not just your ward. Thank you so much for the work you do. And if you get elected to council, we have hope. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, and good luck to everybody.